It's 9 p.m. Do you know where your key fob is?
Hey there, Nate Benson here. This week on the agenda, a sit-down with Nassau County Executive and Republican candidate for governor, Bruce Blakeman. I sat down exclusively with Blakeman in person when he visited Buffalo to open his regional campaign headquarters. And I asked him a series of policy-related questions about his run for governor. Blakeman was first elected to the Nassau County Executive seat in 2021, and he's a close ally of President Donald Trump. In my conversation with Blakeman, we talk about fracking, bail reform, universal child care, taxes, and more. So let's get right to it. Here's my sit down with Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman right now. County Executive, thank you for taking the time today. It's a busy day, so we're going to get right into it. For those voters here in Western New York who might not be familiar with you, and this isn't a psychological question, but quick 30 seconds, who is Bruce Blakeman?
So I've been a bartender, a busboy, a janitor. I worked on the back of a garbage truck, lawyer, councilman, legislator, county executive, and now my job is to run for governor and become governor and make life better for people in Western New York, make it more affordable and make it safer, cut taxes, cut utility rates in half, and hire more cops and create safer communities.
One of the things you've promised day one is to be able to cut those utility costs and things of that nature. How does a governor do that day one?
Well, it's very simple. If you look at your electric bill, 30% of your payment goes for energy, only 30%. The rest go for taxes, excessive delivery costs, and the green energy scam. So on day one, there's no more green energy scam. Number two, in the upcoming budget, I will be trying to cut the taxes, and it will be a negotiation process with the legislature. And on top of that, the excessive delivery fees, that's a hidden cost. And Kathy Hochul has raised the electric bill over 45 times. There's been 45 rate hikes since she's been governor. So she's made it less affordable. And with her green energy scam, within 3 years, it'll cost $4,000 more per ratepayer on an average. So we have to put an end to that. We've got to make it more affordable to live in New York State. And that starts with cutting our electric bill rates. Also, we're going to increase the supply of energy in the state by opening up the Marcellus Shale. We are sitting on one of the largest natural gas reserves in the world, and we're not extracting. In Pennsylvania, where they do it, people are driving brand new Cadillac Escalades. On the southern tier of New York, they're driving 25-year-old rusted pickup trucks. If we increase the supply of energy, and it's clean energy, my buses all run on natural gas. If we increase that supply, people know from high school economics, you don't even have to go to university, supply and demand. The demand's going to be there. Now we got to increase the supply. Let's extract that natural gas from the Marcellus Shale.
You mentioned renewable energy. We're sitting in the shadow of almost an infinite resource of hydropower with the Niagara River, Niagara Falls. If you were governor, would you direct NYPA to expand the Niagara Power project?
Yeah, listen, I think hydro is clean energy. I think it's good energy. I think geo is something. But one of the things that is going to be the cornerstone of my government when I get into office is that we are going to work with local people and local government to see what they want. We're not going to shove things down their throat like Kathy Hochul has done. So if that's what the people of this area want, then we'll do it. If it's not what they want, we'll figure out something else. But I don't believe that government should control everything that happens in the local communities from Albany.
To that end, a topic that's been highly debated since the legislative session ended was this moratorium on data centers. In the past, you have said it's a local issue. Genesee County Stamp Facility, for example, they want to put in $100 billion, whatever it was, data center. Tonawanda, $2 billion data center. Would you support a moratorium on data center expansions, or would you leave it up to local municipalities?
No, I would not have a moratorium, but I would leave it up to local municipalities. And I've talked to data center developers over the last couple of months, and the interesting thing is they've come up with new concepts where they'll make these local communities their partners to share in the profits so that they can lower taxes, they can create prosperity, new jobs, and rebuild infrastructure in a lot of these communities and repopulate some of these communities. So working with the local government to get their approval, there's got to be something in it for the local people, for the community people who are burdened by a big data center. So if we make it so it's a win-win, then we can put these data centers in places where people actually want them. And there are communities in this state where I've traveled where people want them if there's an economic benefit.
As we've seen with industry, and especially in the rural communities of Western New York, and I'll use Great Lakes cheese as an example, where they had a discharge that polluted Ishua Creek, killed millions of fish. Spring season fishing hasn't recovered from that. When regulation at the state level fails, we see a great impact in the environment. So when you're talking about expanding industry, when you're possibly shale and fracking, how do you balance this pristine environment we have here in Western New York with the economic industrial needs of the region as well?
Well, you got to take a common sense approach, okay? So if in fact there is an area that is a very important hunting area for people who are engaged in outdoor sports, or a fishing area, those areas would be treated different than other areas. And again, you work with a local government, you work with a local community to get their approval to put it in. Now, you got to use common sense. I mean, if we're saving, 100 butterflies but losing 4,000 jobs, I'm going to make a cost-benefit analysis on what's better for the community. So in the past, the environmentalists have gone way too far, and they've created regulations that make it impossible to do business in New York State. New York State is at the bottom of economic development. That's a national embarrassment. The great Empire State, the once great Empire State, is between 41 and 50 in economic development. That's why people are leaving. That's why businesses are leaving. We're overtaxed, we're overregulated, our electric bills are too much, and cashless bail is making communities less safe.
I'll get to bail reform in 1 second. You talk about kind of the economics of the state. You're the county executive of Nassau County, which is often ranked in top 3, wealthiest counties here in New York State. What has worked in Nassau County under your leadership?
So I haven't raised taxes in 4 years. As a matter of fact, I cut a $150 million tax increase of my predecessor. I hired more cops, more probation officers, more corrections officers. So we were named the safest county in America, not in New York, in America, by U.S. News and World Report. Niche magazine rated us the most desirable place to live in New York State. So we balance economic development, and we still have a beautiful county that people want to live in. And the fact of the matter is, I can do that here in New York State. We've got resources here in New York State that are untapped. Government just has to get out of the way and let businesses come in here and create the kind of prosperity that will make it more affordable by putting more money in people's pockets rather than government dictating how you can spend your money. People are miserable in New York State under Kathy Hochul. I want to make them happy again. And I'm not going to spend $8 billion of your tax dollars on illegal migrants who aren't New Yorkers. They're not Americans. They just come here. They get free housing, free transportation, free food, and a free cell phone. New Yorkers don't even get that. It's absolutely insane. It ends on day one when I become governor.
How do Buffalo hasn't raised its taxes in 10, 15, almost 20 years as well. They had structural deficits to the tune of $109 million. So not raising taxes does eventually catch up with you. Will that model of not raising taxes work at a state level like you've done in Nassau County?
I've gotten 7 bond upgrades and 4 budget surpluses in a row in Nassau County. And what works in Nassau County is what will work in Erie County. But Erie County, as you said, didn't raise taxes for a while. Now they raise, 20% or around 20%?
Yeah, in the city, yeah.
Okay, that's unconscionable to shock people's tax bill like that in 1 year. They should have phased it in if they were going to do it, but I wouldn't do it at all. The missing component in Erie County is the lack of economic development. If you have economic development and economic activity, you create prosperity. You don't have to raise property taxes if you do that. That's why I didn't have to raise property taxes. That's why I got the bond upgrades. That's why I had the budget surpluses, because I invited businesses to come in. I made it business friendly. People are doing better in Nassau County since I've been county executive. And people will do better in New York State when I become governor. I will make them happy again by putting New Yorkers first.
Obviously, being governor is not a fiefdom. You have a legislature that you have to deal with, right? And they have a supermajority right now in the legislature as a Republican governor in one house. And as a Republican governor, how do you break through and negotiate with a Democrat-controlled Senate and Assembly?
Well, the governor has a lot of power over the budget. The governor has a lot of power over all the administrative agencies. So it's going to be a negotiation process. I understand that we're going to have to negotiate. We're going to have to bargain. I'd like to see more Republican assemblymen, more Republican senators, because I think that people, even in the Democratic Party, feel that their party is going off the deep end, far left, un-American policies, policies that can't sustain themselves in New York State. So basically, it'll be a negotiation process. I'm a good negotiator. I understand that there'll be things that they want. They've got to understand there's things that I want. And as my parents taught me when I was very young, half a loaf is better than none. And if I can get a half a loaf of the things that I want to do in New York State, everybody's life in New York will be much better.
What are some of those unsustainable policies that you mentioned?
Well, the fact of the matter, you can't be at the bottom of economic development. You can't be the most overtaxed state in the United States. You can't be the most overregulated state in the United States. And you can't have utility costs that are 70% higher than the national average and be able to sustain an economy and keep spending. I mean, $268 billion is our budget this year. It's twice the budget of the state of Florida, and there's 4 million more people in Florida. It's crazy. What makes New York more expensive? It's fraud, waste, and abuse. And I'm going to end that when I become governor.
There seems to be a big push for universal child care in New York State. Is that something you support?
I support tax credits for working people who need child care for their kids. Not for some lazy ass who's going to sit on the couch and send their kids off to daycare so they can watch The View or cartoons. That ain't happening with me as governor. But I do believe that working people who are under a certain threshold of income should get help with their daycare. And that's an important state initiative. I'll be part of it in the form of tax credits. You get tax credit. You work, you get a benefit. You don't work, you get no benefit.
The New York Health Act, is that something you support?
The New York Health Act has to be re-looked at. Look, I have a whole healthcare team that is looking at that and looking at healthcare. Our Medicaid costs in New York State, they're higher than they're higher than Texas and Florida combined, okay? We are not doing something right, and they're not delivering quality healthcare services. We've got to look at our whole healthcare system and how we can make it more affordable, but increase the quality. And I suspect that just like Minneapolis and just like California, there's a tremendous amount of fraud, waste, and abuse in healthcare, and it starts with Medicaid. So we're going to start there and work on that, not diminish services, increase services and make more quality services, but somebody's getting paid a hell of a lot of money and they're not delivering quality services to the people who really need it.
The universal school lunch and breakfast program, it went into effect during COVID and it has lingered and stayed. A lot of middle-class families support this. Is that something that you would make sure that stays on if you were governor?
If you're below a certain threshold and you can't afford lunch for your kids, but you are working, you're not a lazy person, you're out there working, and a lot of these people have 2 jobs and they need some help. I think it's compassionate, I think it makes sense, and I think it's healthier to give nutrition to our kids, to feed our kids that need the help. Not the ones that don't need the help, but the ones that need the help.
Bail reform. Obviously, this is something judges and law enforcement have talked about for quite some time. If you were elected, what would you pitch to the legislature in order to revamp that whole program?
We have to completely revamp bail reform. We have a revolving door of criminality in this state. The shoplifting is rampant. The car thefts are rampant. Every community is being hurt. You can't even buy a tube of toothpaste without having somebody in CVS or Walgreens unlock it. I mean, is that what we've come to in New York State? The fact of the matter is that we need to redo bail reform, and there's a smart way to do it. I'll work with the legislature on a smart way to do it. You don't want a kid that's been arrested for stealing a backpack to sit in jail for 2 years. I agree with Democrats on that, but there's a way to do it. Maybe a review process every 10 days with a judge. If someone's held on bail, they've got to review that bail process to make sure that that person was held for the right reasons. They're either a flight risk or they're a danger to the community. Those are the 2 standards that the judiciary has used for 100 years, and we should go back to that.
The Seneca Nation has had a long-standing compact issue with New York State. In 2023, an agreement was first penned, and then it fell apart because Rochester legislative members, killed the whole plan. Seneca Nation wants a deal done. New York State seemingly not coming to the table. What's your message to the Seneca Nation about a new compact if you're elected?
Well, I've already reached out to the Seneca Nation. I want to meet with their leaders. I want to talk to them. I want to sit down and negotiate with them. I think that it's unconscionable that such a large business entity right now, and it's a big business, that the government isn't talking to them, that Kathy Hochul's not talking to them. I think it's a disgrace. Our government has shown no respect for the Seneca Nation and their people and their business leaders. So I'm ready to sit down with them and talk to them. I reach out to communities that we don't focus on what we disagree on. We focus on areas where we can agree on. And I will sit down with them and we'll work out a deal, I'm sure. There'll be give and take, but we'll work out a deal that'll be amenable to everybody.
New York State chipped in $850 million for the new Bills Stadium. You can see it from many of our highways. It looks great. But the Pegulas, have talked about revamping KeyBank Center for the Sabres and the Bandits as well. They're looking to New York State. Should New York State still be chipping in for these mega sports kind of complexes and stadiums and arenas?
Cost-benefit analysis. I would do an economic development analysis, and if I thought that they were bringing in a multiplier effect of revenue for the surrounding community and that they were benefiting the taxpayers, why not? We should be in public-private partnerships as partners, though, not as people who just make donations. What I would say to any entity that wants to do business in New York State, we'll give you benefits, we'll give you incentives, but you got to produce results. You got to produce jobs, and they got to be good jobs, high-paying jobs with good benefits. If you do that, then government has a role helping you.
Do you think the Bill Stadium was a good deal for New Yorkers?
I don't know the intricacies of the deal, but I'm certainly looking forward to going there and watching the games.
Kensington Expressway, highway removal has been a big thing, the 81 in Syracuse, and Governor Hochul wanted to push through a tunnel project of the Kensington Expressway. The people who live in that neighborhood want it removed completely. Where do you stand on this issue?
Is that the marrying of the two communities together?
It's the
putting in the tunnel.
It's the 33. Yeah. They want to restore the Humboldt Parkway, which was a pristine, one-of-a-kind parkway, similar to like New York City, things like that. The residents fought it, won in court. Where do you stand on kind of this?
I'm with the residents. Yeah. I'm with the residents. First of all, it's very, very costly. That's number one. Number two, the residents don't want it. Number three, it's going to create traffic problems around Buffalo. I think it's a really bad idea. And by the way, if the state is going to invest that kind of money, let's invest it in Buffalo, in creating jobs and prosperity, and creating housing in downtown Buffalo. Buffalo's got great bones. We just got to build on those bones. This was a once great city, and we can make it great again. We can make it a city where young people are going to want to move back in because it's going to be safe, because there's going to be economic activity, there's going to be entertainment. Those are the things that make a community vibrant. That's what our young people want. So I want to take Buffalo, just as I want to do to Rochester, Syracuse, Utica, Rome, Binghamton, you name it. Olean, take a smaller city. I want to make those cities vibrant again, repopulate them, get people to live here, invite people from other communities, invite businesses from other communities outside of our state to come here to New York State, create a lot of economic activity, and actually rebuild this state in the model that it once was as the great Empire State.
National policy, whether it be tariffs or just overall national policy that has impacted kind of American sentiment, has impacted tourism with Canada, about $1 billion industry for Western New York each year. The automotive industry, multi-billion-dollar industry here, and the tariffs have certainly impacted the automotive industry at the national level. If national politics, again, whether it be tariffs or other types of policies, would have a direct impact here in Western New York, how would you battle, a President Trump and try to negotiate and work around that, knowing that you have a close relationship with them?
People are miserable in New York State, not because of President Trump. They're miserable in New York State because of Kathy Hochul, the most overtaxed state, at the bottom of economic development, utility costs that are 70% higher than the national average, crime in all of our communities. They're miserable under Kathy Hochul. She's the one that's responsible for making it less affordable to live in this state. She wants to deflect and talk about national issues. I'm not running for national office. I'm running for governor of this state, and I'm going to put New Yorkers first. So she can talk about Trump all she wants. I'm going to talk about making for a better life for our children and our grandchildren in this state.
To that end, though, national policies have impacted the economy here, though, in Western New York, specifically the automotive and tourism industries. So again, how do you balance challenging, those national policies?
Regardless of who the president is, regardless of what party controls Congress, as governor, you will see economic development here in this part of the state. You will see vibrant communities. You will see safe communities. It doesn't matter what the federal policy is, because we can back and fill and do whatever is necessary to make our state great. Because you got states like Texas and Florida, South Carolina, that are booming right now. Yeah. And they have the same federal issues that everybody else has. It's a failure of leadership in Albany by Governor Hochul.
Obviously, the demographics here in New York State, Republicans about 2.25 million registered voters. Democrats 6 million. You've got about 3.7 million independents here. What's your message to those independent voters in New York? How are you going to get them to pick you in November?
So I was just reelected chief executive officer of a county that's larger than 8 states with 110,000 more Democrats, and I won in a landslide reelection because I kept my promises. I won by over 36,000 votes, by 12 points, because I keep my promises, and I make every community better, not just Republican communities. Every race, religion, ethnic group, people of all abilities and lifestyles, they all do better in my county. And that's what I want to make for New York State. Democrats walk up to me each and every day and say to me, my party's gone too far to the left. You're a common sense guy. We believe in you. We trust in you. We looked at your track record. You've done great things in Nassau County. You can do great things for New York. So I'm going to get a lot of Democrats to support me, and we are going to win this race.
I'm going to give you a chance to get a boost here in Western New York. Are the Bills the only true New York team?
Listen, I didn't agree with Mario Cuomo about a lot, but he is absolutely right about that. The Bills are the only New York State team. I go back to Jim Kelly and Thurman Thomas and Bruce Smith. Obviously, I like Bruce Smith because of the name. Yeah, the Bills are the only true New York team.
County Executive, anything else I didn't ask that you wanted to share with voters?
You hit everything.
All right, great. Thanks, sir. Appreciate the time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That was my full conversation with Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman. We have requested a one-on-one sit-down with Governor Hochul so that she is afforded equal time to discuss her campaign. We have not yet received a response to that specific request. Thanks again for watching. I'm Nate Benson, and we'll see you at the next one.